Alright, welcome back everybody to Tropico. This is the last part of this recording here. Basically, after I had played through this, I decided that I was going to just use this as a way to recap my adventures in Colombia and the following week. I had about a week's worth of, well, I had 2 full weeks worth of videos ready to go, so that even if it took me a while to get started back once I came back home, I would still have a full week worth of video buffer. So if I didn't feel like recording something right away, I had a couple days to sort of figure out what I wanted to do next. And this is where the downer comes in. Unfortunately, my dad had a medical emergency on the Sunday after we got back from Colombia. So, he ended up in the hospital for a couple days because of that. So, when I was originally supposed to leave, I was going to leave my parents' house on Sunday, go back to my house in the afternoon some point, do my laundry, you know, look around my house, maybe do some shopping. And he went off to play sport, and he had a medical emergency, and so everything sort of got put on hold. My mom didn't do super well with that. I sort of figured when they took him in the ambulance and they told us that he was dehydrated, that, okay, he's dehydrated, they're gonna put an IV in him, they're gonna get him some fluids, maybe give him something to eat to get his stuff back going. And then my mom called me again and said, hey, can you bring my charger down from my phone? I knew I was in trouble. Because that meant that it was taking too long in the emergency room, and they're not telling her something, or they did tell her something, and she needs me to calmly come down to the emergency room. So we're going to preface the rest of this story by saying my dad is fine. He is back from the hospital. He is 100%, well, I wouldn't say he's 100% back to normal, but if you were to talk to him on last Saturday, whatever, 8-9 days, you know, if you talked to him the day after we came back from Colombia, and you were to talk to him that following Saturday, a week later, other than the fact that he's not able to move, not able to move as quickly as he'd like, he seems to have the same personality, chipperness, you know, wants to clean up the kitchen, to get back to being normal that he did prior to his emergency. But
President, the U.S. Senate is not happy with
he wants canned coffee, and I don't want to deal with that. So anyways, so I come in the emergency room, and my mom's like, your dad died in the ambulance. And at this point, I had sort of, because my mom had called me down to the emergency room, I knew that I wasn't going there just to hand off a charger. There was probably something going on, and she needed my support. And I didn't really know what I was walking into. But to make a long story short, my dad had gone to play tennis that day, and we had gone to church in the morning, and he had not eaten anything after church because he was going to go play tennis, and if he had food, it would maybe make his stomach upset as he's trying to exercise. So what ended up happening was he ended up having a low potassium attack. Potassium is important for your muscles, and because it's important for your muscles, guess what else is a muscle? Your heart. So while he wasn't feeling well, and one of his buddies he was playing with was an ER doctor, and he called for the ambulance. So when my dad got put in the ambulance, they drove to the nearest hospital, and as they're driving to the hospital, my father's heart stopped. and they had to put the paddles on him to get his heart to start back up. Okay? So that's what my mom meant. But I come in the door, and she says, your father died in the ambulance, and she's crying, and I said, Dad's dead? She says, no, they're working on him back in the thing.
Do you remember the
back in the... I love how she asked me for college immediately after after my college literally finishes. You'd asked me 5 seconds ago, I would have said accepted and would have fucking put that damn college right there. Got the fucking bonus out of it. No. Anywho, getting distracted now by stupid prompts. So my dad, he had, whatever you call it, a cardiac arrest or something. And while he was in the emergency room, they found that one of his arteries was blocked. So they flew him to a bigger hospital, and they put a stent in him. And he's been recovering in the hospital since Sunday, even though after he had his stent put in, he looked way better. Like, he went from being as white as a ghost in a lot of pain to sort of sitting up and talking to us and, you know, the whole 9 yards. And I could tell when we were in the emergency room, before we knew what was going on, my mom's head was spinning. Because she's a former medical person. She worked in a hospital for 40 years. So her head's spinning. She knows that he's had a cardiac arrest. Or, I think that's the right... His heart stopped, essentially. I know he didn't really have a heart attack at that point. It's just his heart stopped. And he knew he was revived. But she's like, I could tell she was spinning. She was like, well, what does this mean? Is he having a heart attack? Is he going to have if he's going to have bypass surgery? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? And I'm like talking to my mom. I'm like, Mom, you do not know what's going on in there. And I know that bothers you because you want to be in control of the situation. But they're doing the best they can in there for Dad. And we're just going to have to wait for, you know, them to call us back. And it was unfortunately much longer than I had wanted to sit in an emergency room with no information. But they eventually took us back to see my dad, and he didn't look super great because he needed a stent put in. So, like I said, they transported him to, you know, City Hospital, Pittsburgh City Hospital, via life flight. He got a stent put in. He looked much better. But my mom had a much different reaction when we went in the emergency room than I did. Like, sort of a ignorance is bliss sort of person. Not entirely, mind you, but like, you know, what I don't know isn't going to worry me too much. But my mother knows too much. So when we got in the emergency room, she could see all the numbers and the stats. She like calmed down and got much better. Because like she could look and see, oh, his potassium's down, his heart rate's up. This probably means XYZ for him. You know, versus, I don't know what's going on. Is he got a blood clot? Is he had a heart attack? Is he going to need open heart surgery? You know, what does this mean? And I'm gonna bring a little religion in here. If you don't like that, that's too fucking bad. But I really truly thank the Lord. My father was exactly where he needed to be at all times. Now, obviously, having a heart attack or having something like that happen is not ideal. No one wants it. It's probably one step below having a stroke and 2 steps below finding out you have like a bad cancer, you know. So anyways, get to my point. So he's home, like I said, he's doing fine. They have a vest thing on him that is sort of like a mobile AED. It's hooked up to him that's keeping track of his heart, his rhythm, and there is actually, they told me there's a manual shut-off thing for this in case it malfunctions and it doesn't detect his heartbeat. Okay, so he has the ability, it'll announce that, you know, no heartbeat detected, and then there'll be a way for him to turn it off, so he shouldn't get He won't get like shocked if he doesn't need it, you know, have his heart stop via a thing. But what concerns me about the vest is, you know, from what I understand, I didn't talk to the doctor, but from what I understand, it's a precautionary measure for my father because he had a surgery on his heart and they want to make sure he's okay. Now, the way I look at it in a way is, worst case scenario is that they are, well, I guess I should say, I don't know if it's the best case scenario or worst case scenario, is that they're either charging my father / his insurance an extra $2,500 for this thing that he's ultimately never going to need. He doesn't need it. His heart surgery wasn't really all that bad. It didn't take that long. He looks super great. They were able to do, you know, he's doing the physical therapy to get back to normal. He's not overexerting himself. He's watching what he's eating. And this is just sort of a precautionary thing in case he has a relapse. You know, so like worst case scenario or whatever best case scenario, you wasted $2,500 of insurance / personal money to try to protect my father in case the worst happens. And for me, I looked at it a completely different way in terms of if my dad has to have this, that means there's something wrong, or there's something that the doctors are seeing that they don't like, that gets me worried, because either his heart is good and it's going to take care of itself and he's going to get back to normal, or he's got some really bad underlying heart issues that they don't want to talk about right now. And I don't want to hear that. I mean, I want to hear it if it's true, but I want, long story short, I obviously want my father to be as normal could be. So we basically told him, you know, hey, we're going to take care of any of the outside stuff. Take care of your lawn. We'll take care of anything you need, because he's going to be on this monitor for 90 days. And then I don't know what the lead up to getting quote unquote back to normal is. I don't know if that means that he's going to slowly move his way up to, you know, being able to cut his grass again, or he's not going to be able to cut how big his lawn is, or exactly what that means. He's allowed to go up and down steps, which is good. He doesn't really do it all that much. He does it about once a day. Comes down the steps, you know, because everything on the, you know, whatever you want to call it, the level that is above the basement, we'll just put it that way. Call it the first floor, you call it the second floor. I don't give two shits what you want to call it. The level above the basement, which is basically the living area. There's a kitchen, the refrigerator, food he can make, pantry, what have you. There's a bathroom for him to go to the bathroom in. There's 2 different places for him to sort of chill out and relax. If he's in one room, doesn't want to be in that room, he can go to a different room. Wants to hang out in another room with other people, he can do that. He's got a porch outside that he can hang out on where there's shade. Not super cool in the Northeast right now. It's very warm. It's like in the 90s. Or at least it's in the 90s with the sun. But
what matter requires Presidente?
it was not a good week. My siblings, after my father was in the emergency room, I had to call them, let them know what was going on. Of course, I do a better job of talking to them than my mom probably would have, because, you know, you don't tell someone if, like, I get the fact you want to tell me about it. I want to know what is your current situation. If you're currently dead, then tell me you're dead. I mean, not you specifically, but I mean, like, if you're my mother or you're the doctor, I want to know what the current situation is in the emergency room. If my father is dead, which he's not, you know, thank God, you know, before he had the emergency, he was in the ambulance, and before they knew he was having heart problems, he was already in the hospital. And by the time he needed that stint, he was already in the city. You know, so everything for my father went about as well as can be for having, I guess, a heart attack. if you want to call it that. When I think heart attack, I think open heart surgery, I think triple bypass, I think a lot of other very invasive stuff that I don't really want to think about, to be honest. Yeah, so I called my brother and sister, give them the news, say, hey, Dad's had a medical emergency. You know, he's in the hospital. And then I basically explained what that meant in layman's term, which is, you know, Dad's probably going to need a stent or something for his heart.
I am very pleased to report that Tropico is
and
air pollution standards.
so they came down the house. I'm pretty sure my sister passed out at some point because she doesn't handle bad news very well, and she's a bit sensitive in that regard, which is fine. Not an issue. But sort of what I'm getting at is they came all to the hospital, and we went to the city hospital to see my dad, and he was fine. You know, he was fine after his surgery. You know, recovering, if you will. And then, you know, I'm thinking, okay, what do I do now? Because I've got enough clothes to get me through the end of Sunday, but I don't have clothes necessarily for Monday. So what I was thinking to myself is, what do I do? Do I go home? Do I stay here? And what ended up, I sort of got the hint, say no more from my siblings was, we're staying here. So are you. So I had clothes, I cleaned some clothes for Monday, and then I went to work, and then from work I quickly stopped off at my house, and I picked up enough clothes to last me through the week. And then I came back to the house, and my mom went up and down and up and down. She was fine when I was around, but the stories my siblings would tell me is she had a couple breakdowns after I would leave, because she would start to sort of swirl on things, you know, and she, as a lady, a female, you know, has different ways of dealing with stuff than men do. Men will talk about it, sort of explain the situation, you know, do what I'm doing right now, which is basically give the information, explain what happened, sort of what I think is going to happen in the future, and sort of just to hope for the best. Whereas my mom needed to talk about it. She needed to talk about what she was feeling, what she was thinking. She needed the support of her family. Yeah, this labor camp ended up being a big boondoggle.
My friend, I know
So that $5,000 I mentioned earlier became $30,000, so he paid me back sixfold.
Tally ho, old boy. The riff-raff.
But yeah, I was in my parents' house for another week, so that week of episodes that I had saved up as sort of a buffer to give me sort of an easier week getting back into stuff, plus the 4th of July. I knew I was probably going to be gone the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, which would have been the long weekend. But, that being said, I don't know. It was a trying experience because from what I could tell, my dad was doing good, but my mom seemed like she didn't think so. Like she was worried about the what ifs in this world, you know, like what if he has a setback, what if this, what if that, what, and I had faith that my father was being taken care of. I had not just the faith, you know, the religious faith that, you know, God watches over us and takes care of us and makes sure that he brings us to the places we need to be, and to have the people watching over us to make the right decisions that take us to the best place that we could possibly be. Okay. But I also had faith in his doctors. You know, he's in Pittsburgh, he was in Allegheny, is where he was at. But even if he wasn't in Allegheny, there's a lot of really good, you know, UPMC, Allegheny Health Network. I don't know if there's any private hospitals left. They've all been bought up in the Pittsburgh area by either Allegheny or UPMC, it seems. It's fucking horse shit, might I add. But I get it. You know. You own the insurance company, you own the insurance, you know. Not a monopoly though, not a monopoly. Not any sort of bad business practice going there. But long story short, Dad's doing fine, back to normal, more or less. And Mom's doing fine. She's happy my dad's home. She wants to get back to normal, more or less.
Your opponent in the coming elections has made a considerable leap in the preliminary polls. Things are not looking too good for you.
Presidente, you have to win the elections.
Yeah, so this is where the election sort of swung for me. Is it's sort of a bad event that can happen, and you could choose to take the money and put it in your what do you call it? Swiss bank account, which increases your end score. But as you can see, it decreased the number of votes I got. So because I have a ton of money, I can just start throwing shit at the wall, which I'm about to do. I'm about to issue a tax or a tax cut, which is popular with everybody, and then probably free housing and maybe National Day. I've already got Social Security checked, so I'm already doing that. So between a tax cut, which is going to shoot me straight up the polls, yeah, that's a pretty comfortable lead there now.
Presidente, I have something for you to sign.
I don't think I'll lose now, but you never know. The game likes to try to do this where it makes it seem like you're ahead, and then they'll catch up towards the end, and then they'll fall back, and then it's usually decided by either a landslide victory where you win by like 100 votes, or you end up winning or losing by a small margin, depending on what you've done up to this point. But I'm pretty sure we got this in the bag. So we're just gonna sort of see if there's any quick stuff I can do right off. Probably nothing I can do. Oh yeah, I guess I'll build the cathedral real quick. Got $1 million, and I'm like right at the end of this level, so who cares? Try not to cover up my fields.
Presidente, our Minister of Defense went too far in his artistic endeavors.
Yeah, I'm not having any rebels on my island. I feel like you should have more courage if you're the Minister of Defense, but what are you gonna do? So you can see he's surging a little bit. I mean, it's not going to be enough to overturn the election, but you can see he's getting a little bit more, he's getting a little bit more votes than he originally was.
Our hot topic today, housing. Don't you think
They can build lots of houses here, bitch. They blow the economy, fill the world with housing.
I would personally build him his very own shack.
Yeah, but to live in a
There's also another way to fix that is you turn this on. Build another tenement. Those are always kind of crappy. There's a lot of people though. Trying to put it where the most people are. Build one down here. So towards the end, when we get to the last month of the election, what's going to happen is Penultimo is going to be like, "Hey, do you want to cheat?" And I would say, unless the election is super close, I do not cheat. Or if I'm losing, I guess.
The people demand
Free housing, I don't care. I'm not going to be my island for much longer. I don't usually do free housing. Because if you're not able to control the quality of the building, I don't think you're able to control the quality of the building when the housing's free. But as you increase the rent, so does the quality of the building. The other problem with free housing is when you have different levels of housing, like houses, apartment buildings, tenements, they tend to fill up the better quality stuff first. So it's harder for people that...
My dear Presidente.
I'm leading
Election day
by
draws near.
150 some votes. If he gets even half that number... Wow. Half that number would be what? 30... would be... Whatever, I won. Or I'm gonna win.
Congratulations.
You destroyed the election.
I have a dream of a better Tropico.